The shrill, insistent tone of the emergency alert blared from my weather radio, a jarring electronic shriek that cut through the otherwise peaceful quiet of my Alaskan cabin. Outside, the late afternoon sun was still surprisingly high, casting long shadows in the spruce trees that surrounded my small clearing. Inside, the wood stove crackled companionably, the scent of pine smoke and brewing coffee filling the air. Saturday, another day of blissful isolation in the Alaskan wilderness, miles from the nearest town, even further from anything resembling civilization. Usually, the only alerts I got were for incoming blizzards or roe bear sniffing around the outhouse. This, however, was different, more urgent, more official. I frowned, pushing aside the worn paperback I'd been pretending to read, and leaned closer to the radio, fiddling with the volume knob to make sure I hadn't misheard the initial burst. The automated voice, cold and impersonal, repeated the message, each syllable clipped and precise, devoid of any human warmth. Emergency alert, entity breach at classified facility in Alaska. Avoid all contact with government personnel. Repeat, entity breach at classified facility in Alaska. Civilian population advised to avoid all contact with government personnel until further notice. Shelter in place recommended. Stay tuned to the station for updates. Entity breach, classified facility, avoid government personnel. My first thought was some kind of elaborate prank, a local radio station playing a tasteless joke. But the tone, the stark, emotionless delivery, the official phrasing, it didn't sound like a joke. It sounded real, unsettlingly real. I glanced out the window again, scanning the familiar landscape of snow-dusted pines and frozen ground. Everything looked perfectly normal, serene, even the kind of postcard-perfect Alaskan wilderness that drew people like me to this remote corner of the world in the first place. No signs of entities, no government personnel in sight, just the quiet, indifferent beauty of the Alaskan backcountry. Classified facility, that was the weirdest part. I knew vaguely that there were military installations scattered across Alaska, remnants of the Cold War, mostly forgotten and overgrown. But a classified facility? That sounded like something out of conspiracy theory forum, not an actual emergency alert. And entity breach. What kind of entity? Biological? Extraterrestrial? Something else? My imagination, fueled by too many late-night horror podcasts and a general predisposition toward the weird and unexplained, immediately started conjuring up images of shadowy figures, grotesque monsters, and government cover-ups. Ridiculous, I told myself, shaking my head to clear the cobwebs of sleep and paranoia. It was probably just some kind of industrial accident, a chemical spill maybe, or a malfunction at some remote research outpost. Entity breach was just dramatic, sensationalist language designed to grab attention. And the avoid government personnel part? Probably just standard protocol in case of contamination or something. Keep civilians away from the hazmat teams. That kind of thing. Rational explanations. That's what I needed. Rational, logical explanations to dispel the creeping unease that was starting to settle in my stomach like a lead weight. I went to the radio again, adjusting the dial slightly, try to find another station, hoping for some corroboration, some clarification. Static, just hiss and crackle on every frequency I tried. Weird. Usually, even out here in the boonies, I could pick up a few stations from Fairbanks or even Anchorage, especially on a clear day like today. But now nothing, just static, like the airwaves themselves have been scrubbed clean, disconnected, isolated. Just like me, out here in the middle of nowhere, suddenly cut off from the rest of the world, with nothing but a cryptic emergency alert and a growing sense of foreboding for company. I pulled out my phone, instinctively reaching for a connection to the outside world, a lifeline to normalcy. No signal. Of course. Cell service was spotty at best even on a good day, and out here, deep in the wilderness, it was non-existent. I sighed, running a hand through my already messy hair. Isolated. Completely, utterly isolated. Just me, my cabin, the radio, and a very unsettling emergency alert. Okay, no need to panic, I told myself, forcing a semblance of calm into my voice, even though there was no one else around to hear it. Just stay put, like the alert said. Shelter in place. Wait for updates. It was probably nothing. Probably just a drill or a mistake, or some overblown bureaucratic response to a minor incident. Probably. But the avoid government personnel part still nagged at me. It was so specific, so unusual. Why avoid them? Unless they were part of the problem. Unless they were compromised. The thought sent another shiver of unease through me, colder and more persistent than the first. Compromised by what? By the entity? What kind of entity could compromise government personnel? And what kind of facility was this, hidden away in the Alaskan wilderness, that housed such a thing? My imagination predictably went into overdrive again, conjuring up images of secret labs, underground bunkers, shadowy figures in lab coats, and things that should not be. Stop it, I told myself sternly. Stop letting your imagination run wild. Stick to the facts. The facts were, there was an emergency alert. It mentioned an entity breach at a classified facility in Alaska. It advised civilians to avoid government personnel and shelter in place. And that was it. Everything else was speculation, conjecture, fueled by my own overactive imagination and a general distrust of government secrecy. But even the bare facts were unsettling enough. Entity breach. Avoid government personnel. Those words just didn't sit right. They felt wrong. Ominous. Like a warning whispered from the edge of something dark and unknown. I poured myself another cup of coffee, the lukewarm liquid doing little to warm the growing chill in my bones. I needed more information. I needed to know what was going on. And if the radio wasn't going to give me answers, and my phone was useless, and government personnel were to be avoided, then what? What was I supposed to do? Just sit here in my cabin, waiting for what? For the entity to come knocking on my door? For compromised government agents to show up? And do what? The thought of just sitting and waiting, passively accepting whatever was coming, was suddenly unbearable. I had to do something. I had to find out more. Even if it meant disobeying the alert. Even if it meant venturing out into the unknown. But where to go? What to do? The nearest town, Talkeetna, was a good 2-hour drive, even in good weather, and the roads out here were icy and treacherous at this time of year. And besides, the alert specifically said shelter in place. Going to town would be the opposite of sheltering in place. But staying here, isolated and uninformed, felt even worse, like being trapped in a cage, waiting for the storm to break. I paced restlessly around the small cabin, my boots thudding on the wooden floorboards, my mind racing, desperately searching for a solution, a plan, anything to break free from the suffocating grip of fear and uncertainty. And then it hit me, the classified facility. The alert mentioned a classified facility in Alaska. What if the facility wasn't that far away? What if it was closer than I thought? Closer, maybe even within hiking distance? I knew vaguely that there were rumors of some kind of government installation hidden somewhere in the mountains of the north, a place shrouded in secrecy, whispered about in hushed tones by the locals, a place no one ever talked about directly, a place that was simply there, and not there, a ghost facility, existing in the shadows, just beyond the edge of perception. What if that was Area 12? What if that was where the entity breach had occurred? And what if going there was the only way to find out the truth? The thought was reckless, insane, bordering on suicidal, venturing out into wilderness, towards a potentially dangerous entity breach site, while actively avoiding government personnel. It was a recipe for disaster, but the alternative, staying here, trapped in ignorance and fear, waiting for the unknown to come to me, felt even worse. At least going to the facility, at least seeking out the truth, would be proactive, active, like taking control, even if it was just control over my own fate. And besides, maybe, just maybe, there was a chance to help, to do something, to not just be a passive victim in whatever was unfolding. The idea, once it took hold, became almost irresistible. A siren call, beckoning me towards danger, toward the unknown, toward the heart of the mystery. I knew it was foolish. I knew it was risky. I knew it could be suicide. But I also knew I couldn't stay here, doing nothing, waiting for the inevitable. I had to go. I had to see. I had to know. Decision made. Action time. I started to move quickly, adrenaline finally kicking in, pushing back the fear, replacing it with focused, almost frantic energy. I grabbed my backpack, throw in supplies, extra layers of clothing, waterproof matches, a compass and map, a first aid kit, a couple protein bars, a water bottle. I checked my hunting rifle, making sure it was loaded and ready. Useless against an entity breach, probably, but it was better than nothing. At least it might deter bears. Or government personnel. I hesitated for a moment, then grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight and a small hatchet, tucking them into the backpack as well, just in case. I pulled on my warmest parka, thick gloves, and a wool hat, layering up against the Alaskan cold. The air in the cabin suddenly felt stifling, oppressive, like a trap closing around me. I had to get out. I had to move. I slung the backpack over my shoulders, grabbed the rifle, and headed for the door. As I reached for the handle, my weather radio crackled to life again, the automated voice cutting through the silence, colder and more urgent than before. Emergency alert update. Entity breach containment failure. Classified facility perimeter compromised. Entity exhibiting adaptive camouflage and psychic influence capabilities. Avoid all contact with government personnel. They are compromised. Repeat, government personnel are compromised. Do not trust them. Seek immediate and remote shelter. Survival probability uncertain. Adaptive camouflage, psychic influence, government personnel compromised, survival probability uncertain. The words hit me like a physical blow, stripping away any remaining illusions of control, of rationality, of hope. This was an industrial accident. This wasn't a drill. This was something else. Something far more terrifying. Something beyond human comprehension. And the avoid government personnel directive, it was no longer just a precaution. It was a warning. A desperate, chilling warning. Do not trust them. They are compromised. The door handle felt cold under my gloved hand. For a moment, I hesitated, frozen in place, the weight of fear pressing down on me, threatening to crush me. Maybe I should just stay here. Seal myself in the cabin. Wait it out. Shelter in place. Survival probability uncertain. The words echoed in my mind, a bleak, despairing mantra. But even uncertain survival was better than certain whatever was out there. I took a deep breath, steeling my nerves, pushing back the fear, focusing on the task ahead. I had to go. I had to know. I had to try. I opened the door, stepping out into the cold Alaskan air. The sun was still shining, the sky still a deceptive blue, the wilderness still seemingly serene. But now, the serenity felt false. A mask, hiding something dark and dangerous beneath the surface. The air itself felt different, colder, somehow sharper, with a faint, almost metallic tang that tickled my nostrils. And the silence, it was heavier now, more oppressive, broken only by the rustling of the wind through the pines and the distant, unsettling hum of something. Something I couldn't quite place. Something that resonated deep within my bones. A low, rhythmic thrumming that vibrated through the very air itself. I turned my back on the cabin, stepping out into the snow, heading north, towards the mountains, toward the rumors, towards a classified facility, towards the entity breach, towards the unknown, towards whatever was waiting for me there. The snow crunched under my boots, the sound sharp and loud in the oppressive silence. The wind whispered through the pines, carrying with it a faint, unsettling hum. And as I walked, as I ventured deeper into the wilderness, as I moved closer to the source of the emergency alert, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Not by human eyes, not by government personnel, but by something else, something unseen, something entity. And that whatever it was already inside my head, watching through my eyes, listening through my ears, waiting for me to arrive, for me to see, for me to understand. The journey was long, arduous, the terrain treacherous, The Alaskan wilderness unforgiving. Hours passed, the sun slowly sinking toward the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the snow-covered landscape. The hum grew louder, more insistent, a constant, throbbing presence that resonated in my chest, making my teeth ache. And the feeling of being watched intensified, becoming almost unbearable, a suffocating weight of unseen eyes pressing down on me from all sides. As dusk began to fall, painting the sky in hues of purple and gray, I reached the foothills of the mountains, the landscape becoming steeper, more rugged, the trees thicker, darker, more menacing. And then I saw it, through the trees, nestled in a small clearing, partially hidden by the shadows of the mountains. A structure, not a cabin, not a ranger station, not anything natural or organic, but something artificial, something man-made. A cluster of low, gray buildings, stark and angular against the backdrop of the wilderness, surrounded by a high chain-link fence topped with razor wire, security cameras perched on poles, blinking red lights casting an eerie glow in the gathering twilight. The classified facility, Area 12, whatever they called it, it was there, real, and deserted, silent, ominously silent. No signs of activity, no movement, no lights, no sounds, except for the constant, throbbing hum that seemed to emanate from the facility itself, vibrating through the ground, through the air, through me. I approached cautiously, keeping in the shadows of the trees, my rifle raised, my senses on high alert. The fence was breached, sections of it torn down, ripped apart, as if by some immense force, leaving gaping holes in perimeter security. The security cameras were still blinking, but their lenses were cracked, shattered, useless. The red light still pulsed, but their glow felt weak, feeble, swallowed up by the encroaching darkness. The facility was open, vulnerable, and waiting. For me, I stepped through the breached fence, crossing the perimeter, entering the facility grounds. The silence here was absolute, deafening, broken only by the rhythmic hum and the frantic pounding of my own heart. The air felt colder, heavier, charged with an unseen energy, a palpable sense of wrongness that prickled my skin, raised the hairs on the back of my neck, screamed danger to every fiber of my being. I moved slowly, deliberately, towards the nearest building, a low, windowless structure made of reinforced concrete, its entrance a heavy steel door, slightly ajar, hanging crookedly on its hinges. The door creaked open as I pushed it, revealing a dark, silent interior. The smell hit me first, faint but unmistakable, metallic, chemical, and something else, something organic, rotting, decaying, a smell that spoke of death, of corruption, of something unnatural and profoundly wrong. I hesitated at the threshold, my flashlight beam cutting to the darkness, illuminating a long, empty corridor, the walls lined with blank metal doors, each marked with number, each sealed shut, except for one, door number 12, at the end of the corridor, slightly open, a sliver of light spilling out from within. Door number 12, the classified facility, entity breach, avoid government personnel, survival probability uncertain. Everything had led me here, to this door, to this darkness, to this unknown. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever lay beyond, and stepped through the doorway, into the darkness, into the silence, into the heart of the entity breach, into the entity itself. If you have been brave enough to listen to this far, and a chill has settled in your bones, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Your support is a beacon in the darkness, allowing me to bring you more tales from the edge of sanity and beyond. Hit that notification bell to ensure you never miss a descent into the abyss. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the most terrifying entities are not the ones we can see, but the ones that breach the walls of our own minds.